So this is part one of week two's videos. And let me tell you what the other videos today that I'm recording on Wednesday the 26th have to do with. And this is going to be, it's going to be two class periods of 50 minutes in snippets of 20 minutes each. They're easier to upload to the Blackboard, I'm told. And then the third hour will be something I'm going to tell you about that's multimedia. First of all, in part two of these videos today, I'm going to talk in detail about the course syllabus, deadlines. I'm going to talk about bonus videos I'm going to do to where you can answer questions later for extra credit during the exam on mini episodes. The main focus today is going to be the sources of constitutional law. Where do your individual rights come from? Statutory law, court decisions, the Supreme Court of the United States, the Constitution itself, the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments. We're going to talk about a case called Rochin versus California that you will have very little trouble remembering what that is. We're going to talk about basic definitions of terms, and we're going to talk about basic concepts of constitutional criminal procedure. We're going to take you on a trip through the criminal justice system from a lawyer's perspective, prosecutor's perspective, defense lawyer's perspective, and then we're going to talk about two main theories of how judges interpret the Constitution. There might be very many. We're going to talk about the big ones. The third hour of class will be a full hour. I'd ask you to listen to an episode that's going to be posted this Saturday, the 29th of August, on a podcast with a very great national lawyer named Mark Garagos. It's called Reasonable Doubt, and it's available for free on iTunes. The reason that I'm having you listen to that on Saturday and when we will post it is because there was a very major California Supreme Court decision that Mr. Garagos won, or his client won, in regard to reversal of the death penalty in a very infamous case. So let me talk about the Reasonable Doubt episode that's going to be the third hour of class to be posted on Saturday. First of all, Mr. Garagos is very familiar with news stories that come up in terms of his take as a criminal defense lawyer of 40 years on them. Now, I used to spend the first 15 minutes of every class night, I used to teach on Tuesday nights last semester, going over criminal justice stories in the news. I don't have to do that if you listen to Reasonable Doubt. It is a fun listen. They immodestly call it the greatest hour in the universe. It's a very good legal podcast that features a host, Adam Carolla, who's a well-known comedian. And you don't have to listen to it after this week, but this week you have to because it's part of the course materials, which means you can be essay questioned about it during the midterm. They talk about real-world major cases, many of which Mr. Garagos is part of. And he had represented Scott Peterson 18 years ago to 16 years ago, 2002 to 2004, in the state of California, in a murder trial involving two victims, his wife, who turned up missing on Christmas Day, and his 8-month in gestation unborn son, who was a fetus at the time. And in California, if one murders a fetus of that age who can survive beyond the womb, that is a murder case. So the defendant was convicted back in 2004, I believe. Mr. Garagos suffered that loss. But Mr. Garagos also represented Scott Peterson, who was not a sympathetic character, at the separate death penalty hearing with the same jury. Well, the California Supreme Court reversed that death penalty verdict on the 24th of this month, 7-0. There were no dissenting opinions. I'll explain what a majority opinion is right now in the appellate court or in the Supreme Court of California, Illinois, or the Supreme Court of the United States. Majority opinion would be the winning side. Many, many times, unfortunately, in our Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., they're split along party lines, which should really never happen, and they're split 5-4 all the time. California Supreme Court was 7-0 to reverse the death penalty for Mr. Peterson because they found problems with jury selection and what is known in death penalty cases as death qualification. Here's what happens in death penalty cases, although we don't have a death penalty in Illinois anymore. It has been eliminated about 15 years ago. According to the case law from the Supreme Court of the United States, in jury selection, the veniermen, which are the jury panel people who could be on the jury, but they're not on the jury yet, they're being selected or deselected by the lawyers and by the court, and they can be asked by the prosecutors or the judge, what are your feelings about the death penalty? Are you for or against it? And what happens is, in this case, the jurors who said they were against the death penalty were not also asked, well, even though you're against the death penalty, could you still nonetheless apply the law that the state legislature has written and, in the right case, impose a death sentence? They were not asked that. The failure of the trial judge to ask that, and I'm guessing Mr. Geragos wanted that asked, was fatal to the death sentence that Mr. Peterson received. However, his guilt was affirmed in his latest appeal. Affirmed on appeal means the appellate court agrees with the trial court's verdict or judgment. So an affirmation or an affirmance is a loss for the defendant on appeal in this particular case. A reversal of the death penalty in this case is a loss for the state, because now Mr. Peterson, if the state still wants to go for the death penalty against him, they have to win a whole new death penalty phase with all new jurors. They have to be asked the right questions in jury selection, and it is possible the state could still go for the death sentence in this case. They don't have to worry about proving guilt, though. There was a lot of circumstantial evidence proving Scott Peterson's guilt. It is overwhelming. And if you want to Google that opinion to read, California, here's the word search would be California Supreme Court, People versus Scott Peterson, August 24th, 2020 opinion, and that will come up. So that, by way of introduction, tells you what we're going to be doing in week 2, posted during week 1, and that's the end of this part of the taping. Thank you.